Now we're on the roof. I've already loaded all the tools and FallBan parts onto the roof. These are mid braces, diagonal braces, and a few parapet clamps. This is a 1/4 inch cable. These are cable clamps. Here we have high visibility flag line. These are cable corner roller assemblies. These are safety snap pins. These are stanchion to wall rests. These are stanchions, and one of them has a stanchion support plate attached. These are stanchion support plates. The ones with a pigtail loop are cable termination anchor plates. 400 and 500 foot kits now include a metal storage pallet. While installing the FallBan system, we'll be using harnesses, ropes, lanyards, and personal anchors. Another option would be to use a tie-off cart to pull around the roof perimeter as you go instead of the personal anchors, or use any other fall protection of your choice. There you go. When you're using a ladder to access the roof, or if you need an access area for loading materials or removing tear-off materials, you'll need to start and stop the cables on those stanchions. This will also require diagonal braces. While no one is using the ladder, you should use a chain or a rope as a gate. I usually mark 10-foot intervals along the perimeter of the area to be protected. You can see I've already done this to save time. Here we have a metal edge with a wall below. Set the stanchion on the edge of the roof. Now mark the stanchion so the stanchion to wall rest is against the wall. For all the stanchions with this similar wall detail, the stanchion to wall rest will be adjusted the same. Okay, the next attachment we're going to show you is when there is no wall below. Here we take a stanchion, remove the stanchion to wall rest, install the extension bar here, and install the stanchion to wall rest here. Next, set it on the roof and make adjustments so it fits snug. Now adjust all these stanchions in the same manner. Next step is to lay out the individual pieces that will be used, setting each piece approximately 6 or 7 feet from the roof edge. Stanchions on each corner and 20-foot intervals with mid braces between the stanchions and diagonal braces at the corners. Placing 2 stanchions on each corner adds strength and stability to the system. If while you're laying out pieces you come up with a longer than 10-foot space, just add another complete stanchion in that area. Complete stanchions can be installed consecutively if the spacing is no greater than 10 foot. Also lay out the corner roller assemblies and anchor termination plates. Any change in roof elevation requires 2 stanchions. Okay, now it's time to attach the stanchions and diagonal braces. Corners usually only need 1 stanchion and 2 diagonal braces, but here with this offset, we're installing 2 stanchions. For the OSHA compliance testing, we used 1.5" by number 12 screws when installing the stanchions, diagonal braces and mid braces, etc. The screw we used is made for insulation attachment on roof decks. The securement and attachment of this system is the responsibility of the installer. We recommend always using new, no smaller than 1.5" by number 12 screws to install the FallBan. Be cautious not to strip out the screw heads. This will make removing the screws no problem during disassembly. Okay, all the stanchions are in place, diagonal braces and cable corner rollers are installed. This is a model of our new FallBan 2 stanchion. The cables are installed in the top, middle, and bottom cable connections for use in the United States. Canada only requires 2 cables. Hardrail tubing can be secured in these 2 larger hardrail attachments for the United States and/or Canada, and each hardrail attachment holds the new cable connections for Canadian use only. Now we'll run the 3 cables on this roof. Only 2 cables are required in Canada. Unroll a 1/4-inch cable along the perimeter of the roof, and an easy way is to secure the end of the cable either at a stanchion or at a cable termination anchor. Put a broom handle through the roll of cable, hold the broom handle on both sides of the roll of cable, and walk along the perimeter to unroll the cable along the entire area to be protected. Next, start where the cable was secured and hook the cable to the top cable holder on each stanchion, or a lower cable holder if only 2 cables are being used. Whatever is required to achieve 39-inch height at the top of the top cable. Pull the cable fairly tight as you go all around this area, and put a cable clamp at the end on the holding side of the last stanchion to hold the cable taut while the remaining cables are being set in place. Another option is when you get to the last stanchion, simply turn the cable down to the next lower cable holder and finish unrolling that roll of cable back towards where you started. When your cable comes to an end, connect the end of the cable with the beginning end of another roll of cable using 2 cable clamps. When installing the cable clamps, turn the tightening sides of the clamps in opposite directions. When you get to the end, pull the cable taut and install a cable clamp on the holding side of the last stanchion. Repeat this process until all the cables being used are installed. This is the easiest way to start a cable. Or you can attach the cable to a cable termination holder. After much testing, this is the recommended method of terminating the top cable at the corner stanchions. The tension of the top cable needs to be isolated from the mid and lower cables. In other words, the top cable is tensioned tighter for meeting specific deflection requirements applicable to only the top cable. The mid and lower cables will be tensioned less than the top cable. Isolating the top cable does not need to be a separate cable from the other two. For example, the cable can be looped down to the mid cable position at the end of a run and looped to the lower cable position at the other end of the run. However, it needs slack outside the last stanchion going to the mid cable position. The mid and lower cable can be one continuous run and not isolated from each other as stated for the isolated top cable. One ratchet puller can tighten both mid and lower cables simultaneously. Cable clamps are needed outside the last stanchion before and after the slack in the cable. The cable clamps will allow the top cable to be tensioned much tighter without any effect on the other position's tension. Often it is beneficial to create several tightening areas on the cables to be able to loosen and tighten the cables on various roof sections during the roofing process. We'll set each one in place, but don't tighten the J-hooks now. That'll be done later. If using FallBan 2, it is not necessary to tighten J-hooks because the newer mid braces have an improved design that does not use J-hooks. Everything's ready to tighten the cables. On long runs, sometimes it's necessary to install a diagonal brace on a stanchion midway. Tighten the cables to this stanchion and repeat the process until the entire area is complete. Tensioning cables. The tension of the top cable needs to be isolated from the mid and lower cables. In other words, the top cable is tensioned tighter for meeting specific deflection requirements applicable to only the top cable. The mid and lower cables will be tensioned less than the top cable. It needs slack outside the last stanchion going to the mid cable position. Cable clamps are needed outside the last stanchion before and after the slack in the cable. The cable clamps will allow the top cable to be tensioned much tighter without any effect on the other position's tension. Leave the J-hooks on the mid braces loose to allow top cable movement as it is tensioned. If using FallBan 2, it is not necessary to tighten J-hooks because the newer mid braces have an improved design that does not use J-hooks. Hook the 15-pound tensioning weight to the top cable halfway between the stanchion and the mid brace and increase the tension of the top cable until the cable height at the weight is within 3/4 inch of the cable height at the nearest stanchion. For meeting Corps of Engineers regulations, the cable height should be within 9/16 of an inch of the cable height at the nearest stanchion. Remove the 15-pound tensioning weight and tighten the J-hooks at each of the mid braces for the top cable. When tensioning the middle and bottom cables, tension until taut to remove any slack and sags between the stanchions and mid braces in order to maintain the maximum 15-inch spacing between all three cables. Do not use the 15-pound tensioning weight or any other weight on the cables when tensioning the mid and lower cables. For Canada, tension the bottom cable until taut. Tighten the J-hooks for the mid and bottom cables while the FallBan system is in place and operational. Do not release the ratchet pull or tension while in use. After the cable has been tensioned, move any cable clamps pulled toward the ratchet puller to fit tight up against the last stanchion, and install a second cable clamp against the first cable clamps. Anytime a cable clamp is used, always add a second cable clamp to achieve adequate securement. Two cable clamps in opposing directions create a more secure cable attachment. Check tension frequently as described below. We recommend installing 2 stanchions on each corner, one on each side of the corner, for optimal system strength and stability. The last step is to install the flags or warning lines with the top cable. Well, we won't need these again until we're ready to remove the FallBan. While you're working your way around the roof perimeter and you need to work on the perimeter edge and need to remove a stanchion, the safety monitor system may be used with a competent safety person to monitor the safety of the crew while a single stanchion is removed, leaving the cables in place. Complete the work on that area, then reinstall the stanchion. Repeat the process while continuing around the roof perimeter. The FallBan system has been tested with a Missouri licensed professional engineer observing, who certified the results. FallBan meets and exceeds U.S. OSHA standards and Canadian SOR standards. Attachment to the roof, which is beyond our control, is the responsibility of the installer. Each project should be inspected to determine the strength and sturdiness of the roof perimeter edge in which a roof fall protection system might be installed. Rotted lumber or very rusted metal could mean poor attachment. During the compliance regulation testing, we used a number 12 screw to attach the FallBan stanchions, mid braces, and diagonal braces to the roof perimeter edge with no problems. It's our recommendation new screws or lag bolts no smaller than number 12 roofing screws be used to attach the FallBan components, with care not to strip out the screw heads. Damage to the screw heads creates problems removing the fasteners during dismantling.